A guy named Rick Seal, who was a collector at the time. The next ad I had was, everyone made fun of me, was for the, I think it was the 1980 or 79 A&A, where I had a full-page ad in Cornwall that said, "Only bring me your big deals, $1 million or more," or something. I think those were the 2 times advertising. I've always been the guy kind of like behind the scenes, and I've always liked it better that way. I've always enjoyed being the guy in the back more so than the front when it comes to doing business. I don't know what else to tell you guys unless you want to hear more about coins or questions or anything like that. Anything, Mr. Beckwith.
Yeah, so the early part of your career was spent during the big bull market in gold, which probably helped prices going up, so that probably helped you, even if bad deals, prices would go up and bail you out. How did you survive 1981 to 97? That's to me more interesting because that was a period of
I'll be happy to
massive
tell you.
bear market in your area.
I'm going to give you guys the emes. A couple of things happened. Emes, the truth. 1980, was it 80 or 81, Paul? When the bus went over my car.
Coincidence.
It wasn't a coincidence.
Well, first off,
1980.
a lot different than this coin market.
Yeah, it was, but anyway.
Bull market was
No,
it was going up 2% a week.
Right.
Like gold
It was
is now,
crazy.
that's what coins were doing in 79.
They were.
And they didn't even
1980 coins left from inventory at the top were proof 3-cent nickels at 32.50 that I bought for Ed Hips. I remember those. That was some
Good bet.
But a couple of things happened to me. Number one, what I and truth is, I had an accident in front of MTV in New York. A bus, I was hailing a cab and a bus almost killed me. I jumped out of the way and it ran over my briefcase with my coins inside. And I had a very creative thought from one Mr. David Gans. Have you heard of? Governor Gans, President Gans. And I had it. No, there's nothing wrong with it. The coins were a little messed up, and I got like $220,000 insurance on it. But what it did was, it wasn't so much the $220,000 I got, but what it forced me to do was just sell all my coins. So I ended up selling down my inventory very rapidly before everyone else. So that was a very big edge for me in the beginning. But the thing that I did that was different from anyone else during this period, and it's really great that you asked this question because it's actually very interesting. I'm really glad you asked this. Is I kept buying and selling coins all the time. Back then there wasn't slabs. It was a matter of, did people respect your eye? And it's like anything else. You could bullshit a little bit or deal with people that don't know anything, but I was always dealing with other dealers. So if I didn't have a good eye, my product would not sell. So I always was able to buy and sell. And it was to the point where you would go to coin shows in the early 80s and all you would see are coin dealers playing backgammon. Literally, not a joke. That's all they could see, backgammon
Nobody
tables.
would buy coins. If the coin dealer newsletter said 300, there are only one place to go. You could go to Kevin and he'd offer you 130.
And I literally kept
And nobody else would pay 130.
I once went, when I was in New Jersey, and I think it was 82, I went out to Bowers. Back then it was Bowers and Ray. And no one was there except for Ivy. Steve Ivy showed up. And back then when we'd go to coin auctions, we would play high bid. If you were higher, the other guy would lay off, I noticed I was actually very clever as a young man. And I noticed that no one was there, so I put bids down on every coin in this auction, and literally beat Ivy out on every coin except for some. I went to this auction and no one else showed up but me, and I bought the whole auction. And this was a Bowers and Ruddy sale. I'm glad you brought that up. I would have never remembered that. So what I did was, before the sale, when I recognized that no one else was going to show up, I went to Dave and I said, listen, I I said, I think I'm gonna spend a lot of money in the auction. I said, give me 4 months to pay for it. He agreed, so we did that. I bought all of these coins, and at the time, the whole auction, I think, was probably around $400,000. There was a lot of coins. There was a lot of fabulous coins in there. I went over to the Goldbergs, and at the time, they had this lovely, lovely man who since has passed away, named Bob Lowgren, who was a successful first-generation guy who was buying coins. And I took all these coins and I sold it to the Goldbergs as one lot. So I made about $80,000 or $90,000, and they paid me immediately. And I had floated for 4 months with Bowers. So the reason it was different for me was no overhead. I had a tiny little office, and I kept buying and selling. People were just like this, and they would do nothing. And I just kept buying and selling coins. And there was always people that were interested in buying value. I would sell coins in the early 80s to acres all the time for Steve's typeset. Because I knew what a lot of people back then really couldn't grade. It was all bullshit. They really couldn't grade. And if you could grade, it made a big difference.
Did you specialize, Kevin, in upper quality all the time? I assume
Oh,
you had to buy everything.
More so.
Kevin would buy anything. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
In 1980, Leroy Linhart and I split $240,000 worth of patterns out of the air and said, real sharp. We nailed
Top of the market.
Top
Worst.
Worst time. But listen to this. In 1982, at the bottom of the market, nobody, like they said, nobody would buy anything. We were down to 7 patterns. We had 44,000 of these 7 patterns. Leroy said, sell them. I said, Leroy, who am I going to sell them to? He says, well, Kevin will make an offer. So I go over to Kevin, and I said, Kevin, here are these 7 patterns we bought out of here. Kevin said, sure, I'll make an offer. I paid $6,000. We were paying 44,000. So I go, Leroy called me out. So luckily, I was smart enough. Kevin and I were good friends, and I went over to Kevin and I said, Kevin, thanks for the offer. I appreciate it, but I'm not going to sell them. I went to Leroy, wrote him a check for $3,000. Well, now I was in half the coins at $22,000, half the coins at $3,000. So I was in at $25,000. You ended up getting about $18,000 over a couple of years. But Kevin was the only person who would make an offer. Halper was at that show, the same show. It was June of Long Beach, 1982.
That's when he was done. That's when he was selling it.
He was
I actually
done.
bought most of. Again, you reminded me. I don't remember. Thank you. At that show is when Halpern,
Yeah.
Jim, New England Rare Coin Galleries for the '70s kicked everybody's ass, and that was Jimmy Halpern. Steve's place in Dallas was a distant step in as a young aggressive coin artist. What happened to Jim was, more so than the coin market turning on him, he bought this huge building in downtown Boston that today is probably a $200 million building. And he got so screwed by the people that were involved in fixing it up, it just killed him. He was way over leveraged, and he was done. So at that,
Not the real estate agents, his partners.
his partners, everything, his partners,
Yeah,
everyone that could screw you, screwed him. It just, he wasn't paying attention to it. And like any of us, when we deal with those people, we have no shot, as we all know. Even if we're redoing a bathroom, it's horrible. I mean, yesterday my son Brandon is just doing a condo. He gets a text. The electrical, he thought it was going to be $2,000. He gets a bill for $8,600. And she goes, "What do I do?" I said, "Calm down. I'll take care of it." But I mean, you have no shot against those people unless you're right on top of it. So they managed to take. And at that coin show he's talking about, I literally bought out all of Jimmy's coins.
Jim offered me a double roll box. I was collecting cow gold. He had a couple of hundred cow gold pieces. You're getting $50. I only bought 30 or 40 because I didn't have any money either.
And I probably went in and I bought the rest of them for $35.
You're right.
Well, did the wise person on the turn things?
Let me tell you about a couple of the sales. The one that's very important is the Garrett's, because that was, to this day, if you go through that catalog, I can show you the coins. I remember them because they were so devastating.
1827.
Yeah, but that coin's worth more money than coins that are worth